Good day and welcome back to another Dbz Dokkan video. In this video we are going to take a look at, well, people have asked me to do preview videos on like the units before they come out, so this is kind of a new thing for me, and so I thought the easiest way would be to just kind of do this on Twitter, since that is possibly the easiest way, and we can take a look at everything and just see how it goes. But yeah, so the first major unit is obviously Goku and Gohan. They are a Super Saiyans or Goku family category lead of 170%. They also give an additional 30% for Android Cell Saga category units, which is a bit weird. So the reason why it's a bit strange is Super Saiyans or Goku's family is kind of great. That's a good portion of the leader skill. Usually the 30% is good when it meshes within those other categories quite well. So like when it hits a lot of the target audience. So like 30% hybrid Saiyans here would be a big buff, because it would hit hybrid Saiyans units in the Super Saiyan category, which is a lot, and the hybrid Saiyans in the Goku's family category, which is a lot. The issue is that it kind of doesn't right now. So you end up really kind of struggling to see how the 30% Android Cell Saga kind of meshes. Who's good with that? Goku Heart Disease Goku, AGL LR Gohan, Vegeta, Trunkses. There's a couple units there, but it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit weird, like just on face value. It doesn't hit as many units as people would like. In terms of links, Golden Warrior, Saiyan Warrior Race, All in the Family, Super Saiyan, Kamehameha, Prepared for Battle, Fierce Battle, those are all good, and they share those links actually with, they share 5 links with the AGL LR Gohan, which is great, and these links don't change when they exchange either. Then in terms of passive, we have attack and defense of 180% with an additional attack and defense of 59% when performing a super attack. Pretty straightforward. High chance of evading an enemy's super attack within the same turn after performing a super attack for 5 turns from the start of the turn. So once he supers once, he has a 50% evasion chance. Medium chance of evading enemy super attack within the same turn after performing a super attack starting from the 6th turn. So after he supers, he will have a 50% chance to dodge, and then from the 6th turn onwards it will drop down to a 30% chance to dodge, with an additional attack and defense of 20% with each attack evaded. So not too bad. Honestly, on face value of this, it doesn't seem too bad. One negative thing here is the fact that his passive doesn't really mesh well into his active skill, and that's kind of where I see people complaining. So like evasion's cool and he has a decent level of evasion, but the active skill requires you to do additional attacks. Now it seems detrimental to put the unit into additionals instead of crit to maximize that damage, just so you can possibly have the active skill 1 turn earlier, because just by putting additionals in, you maybe have a chance to get it on the 2nd turn or entering the 3rd turn, rather than after the 3rd turn entering the 4th turn, which is kind of where people stand with that. In terms of the active skill, as you can see here, it can be activated after performing 3 or more super attacks, which is the issue that people are talking about. This whole kind of super attacks needing the additionals, it's the big issue. Categories wise, there aren't a lot of categories. That's kind of pretty straightforward, and then they raise attack and raise their defense for 1 turn, so that's pretty impressive. If it's like any other exchange unit as well, those attack stacks will remain when you exchange them, so raising attack is pretty good, although raising defense would have been cooler, and they have a high chance of stunning the enemy, which is quite helpful. So that is Goku in the first form, but then when we exchange into Gohan, a couple of things change. So obviously leader skill stays the same, that's not so important. In terms of the passive skill, they have attack and defense of 180%, plus an additional attack of 58% within the same turn after receiving an attack. They also raise defense by up to 100% with more HP remaining, which is okay. I guess it's not always the best. And then they guard all attacks for 3 turns from the start of turn. If guard is activated for the second time in battle, so if they are hit while they have guard active twice, so basically if they activate their guard twice, they will gain 58% defense. If they are hit 4 times, they will activate an additional attack and defense of 58%. If they are hit 6 times, they have a great chance of nullifying enemies' Ki Blast super attacks, countering with tremendous power, and they will also have their guard active. The nullifying enemies' Ki attacks and the countering are separable, so that's always there. The interesting thing is, again, there's no crit or additionals built into this passive either. So if you want to get the active skill as quickly as possible, you have to build the unit into additionals, but the unit has no built-in crits. So you are maximizing for the active skill rather than maximizing for the DPS of the individual attacks themselves. So it's something that's quite interesting. And if we take a look at their super attack effect, it raises attack and defense for 1 turn. So they even lose the stunning chance, which is quite interesting. It's very, very interesting how they've designed the character. I think to go crit is still the best way, because I think the separation of getting Gohan as an active skill unit from the 4th turn he's out to the 3rd turn he's out is not really that important. However, you know, it is interesting how they've done that. So then obviously, like, the next unit is Cell. So Cell's a pretty interesting one, and you can kind of see, like, Cell's got a lot of forms going on here, and they're not really in order at all. So Cell transforms, and so we'll talk about Cell. So Cell is a Android Cell Saga category lead and a Power Absorption category lead, which is good. He leads Androids so as well for the extra 30%, which falls a lot into both those categories. So I actually think Cell's leader skill on the face value is equal to Goku and Gohan's, if not slightly better. I feel like the Android units that fall under the Power Absorption category are a little bit few. You have like Android 21, Cell himself, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And Super 17, I believe. So you do get some noticeable buffs, but it's not necessarily like inherently the best, if you know what I mean. Whereas obviously under Android Cell Saga category, there's a lot, but essentially I think almost like every Android is pretty much covered by Cell, barring like the USS Saga Android 17s and 18s. Like, if you consider all the major Android units, most of them are under Android Cell Saga or under Power Absorption, so that's something noticeable. In terms of his links, he's got Big Bad Bosses, which is noticeable, Shocking Speed, Wall Standing Tall, Messenger from the Future, Nightmare, Fierce Battle. Standard link set, very Cell orientated link set. In terms of his passive, so his is more orientated against facing multiple enemies in his first form. So he has additional attack and defense when facing multiple enemies here. So he's got attack and defense of 170%, and additional attack and defense when performing super attack. He gains more and crit chance of 18% when facing 2 enemies. He gains even more when facing 3 or more enemies, and then he has a medium chance of launching additional super attack when HP is 50% or more. So he has built-in additionals when HP is above 50%, which is pretty good. And he also has evasion and crit chance built in based on how many enemies he's facing. So there's no real need to build Cell any specific way right off the bat. His active skill also is turn-based. So you have him for he raises attack and defense for 1 turn, causes immense damage to the enemy, and then his active skill is time based, so it's from the 3rd turn. So right off the bat, I find Cell less restrictive. As much as it is determinable by how many enemies he's facing, that's just part of his design. He's designed to be better against multiple enemies, as Cell, when he was in his first forms, usually was fighting multiple enemies in the attempt to absorb the androids. That's kind of why he's built like that. In terms of everything else, it's relatively quite straightforward. So for me, that's not really a hindrance. And we'll talk about how to build them when we get closer to the final forms and everything. To the second form, Cell, obviously, again, leader skills don't change, but the passive does. He gains 10% on his attack and defense, and he gains 10% on his attack and defense when performing a super attack, so it's a flat buff. Then he gets plus an additional crit chance of 17% flat as well, so that's also quite a change. He then gains an additional attack and defense of 120% when facing 2 or more enemies. So now you no longer have to face 3 enemies, you know, to receive his full buff. You're essentially receiving it with 2 or more enemies. So he's getting closer to that fighting a single unit type situation, but he is essentially, you know, building to that section. But again, he's still quite conditional. You still have to fight multiple enemies. He raises his attack, raises his defense. Again, raising attack is cool. Because, you know, he will raise that attack, and then those stacks will kind of pull over into his transformations, and he absorbs Android 18 immediately from the next turn. So this cell's only there for 1 turn, and then you obviously transform into Cell Perfect Form. So this isn't Perfect Cell, this is Cell Perfect Form. This is when he first transforms. Biggest change here, obviously he's like almost entirely single target. So he goes to attack and defense of 250% plus an additional attack and defense of 50% when performing a super attack. So his chance of performing a critical hit and his chance of evading the enemy's attack, including super attack, plus 35%. So he's now just a flat out 35% crit, 35% evasion, which is good. Plus an additional attack and defense of 50% when facing only 1 enemy, plus a high chance of launching an additional super attack when HP is 50% or more. So just on his link set, it also changes. He obviously gains Gentleman, Attack of the Clones, and Ultimate Life Form. Important things are that Shocking Speed and Big Bad Bosses have been there the whole way through. And if you look at the major cell units, most of them obviously rely on those links, those specific links, to kind of be like really, really good. So I think, like, if you look at Cell, you know, the int one, obviously, which is what everyone's mainly concerned about, his major links are Gentleman. That's like his major links, and Ultimate Life Form, both of which this cell has. The cell has Gentleman, it has Ultimate Life Form, which are very, very important. It has Big Bad Bosses as well, and it has Messenger from the Future and Fierce Battle. So it's got 5 links with the LR, same as Gohan, but it has his 2 major key links. But it also has the major key links for the LR physical cell, because it has Gentleman and Shocking Speed, which the other cell has. So he's actually able to complement both of these cells, which I think is very, very important in terms of his design. If we take a look at you know, his super attack effects, so very important is, okay, so there's the Rage skill, which can be activated when HP is less than 50%. But if we take a look at his you know, his attack and defense for 1 turn and causes immense damage to the enemy, he's, how do I say, he's an interesting unit because he kind of does a bit of everything the whole way through. So Cell the entire way through has the ability to crit, has the ability to evade, and he also will fire additionals well above 50%. So Cell consistently has the ability to do all 3 major things. Now, obviously, the varying degree to how well they are done depends on, you know, let's say, like, it depends on, for example, how many units he's facing. The real question in terms of build is, what do you build them for end-game content? Now, the hardest content in the game, at least on global side, is obviously LGE GT, LGE Vegeta, or sorry, the legendary Vegeta event. And on the JP side is Red Zone, which is super duper hard. You'll probably get Cell to transform at least to this stage in all of that content. I'm like 90% certain. So I think additional is the best way to build him, just because he has guaranteed 35%, flat 35% in his final transformation. So I feel like additional is the best way to build him, because then you also get the raised defense stacks, which is good. And with, if you are above 50%, you can actually fire off like 3 supers in a turn. But I think that's the best way to go. It is difficult to say. He does also have a rage mode, which is very important. So rage mode, pretty straightforward, guaranteed crits. So that's also why the additionals come in handy. If you do need to activate the rage mode, there's a chance for double crits, which obviously does help. That's kind of it for the 2 major banner units. Just a quick summation or glance at the other 2 units. So Android 16 and 18 are one of them. 130% Android's lead, which is pretty good. They're basically a cross between, like, they're an upgraded version, I want to say, of the strength Android 18, the free-to-play one, with attack of 160%, defense of 180%. They raise the defense depending on HP remaining. Medium chance of attacks being effective against all types when there's a superclass ally attacking the same turn. Medium chance of guarding all attacks when there's another extreme class ally attacking the same turn. So they're kind of like more defensive orientated on an extreme team and more offense orientated on a super team. And you can see that in their support passives. They give more attack on a super team and they give more defense on an extreme team. They're a bit of an interesting unit in that way. I think they're a somewhat solution to units like the Int Android 16, where it's like, okay, if you put this guy on a team and basically you essentially put them on a team and you just want to run them in the Android Cell Saga team, then as a floating support, they're going to give a whole bunch of varieties of buffs to your team, and they're going to fulfill a whole bunch of requirements for Gohan. They're still not AGL types, so they can't fall under Gohan's lead in any way, shape or form, which is a little bit annoying. You still have to run Android Cell Saga unit supports because neither of these units are in Super Saiyan or Goku's family, and neither of them are under Kamehameha. So that is a tad bit annoying, but that's about it. Greatly raising attack and defense. In terms of their categories, they're also not on a lot. Joint Forces, Androids, Android Cell Saga, Target Goku. So they really are just kind of a niche pull for the Android Cell Saga team. Vegeta is probably the more interesting one, being a Mastered Evolution 130% lead, raises his attack and defense for 1 turn. In terms of his passive, he's got attack and defense of 100%, gains an additional 100% when attacking, launches an additional super attack with 3 key spheres obtained, launches an additional attack for 4 turns from start of turn, and then he does gain just a flat attack and defense of 100% from the turn in which the character performs a 5th attack in battle. So basically he's just about attacking as quickly as possible, and he does so by essentially having the ability to fire off additional attacks with 3 orbs. He fires off an additional one already for 4 turns from the start of battle, and he has his base attack. So if you give him additionals, he's going to get there in like 3 turns. He's going to have attack effective against all types and just be flat out better. On a bit more categories than the other unit, Link set also appears to be just a bit better, a bit more Vegeta orientated, very straightforward. Nothing too crazy beyond that. Looks really good. None of the units here look bad. When people comment that these units look bad, I don't know what aspect of Cell or Gohan makes you feel like they are bad. Gohan in any hard event should probably proc his guard 6 times, especially since he's got it for the first 3 turns, and units attack like ass, nuts crazy in the hard events. And Cell, yeah, okay, maybe you don't see good Cell for the first couple turns, but like, so what? You know, the first couple turns of super hard events don't always matter. That's usually when you're using items, that's usually when you're pulling up with things. I just don't really see the issues that people bring up with these units. So yeah, that is pretty much it in terms of the units. I'm not going to look at super attacks or anything like that. I'm not that based yet. I feel like you can easily look up the super attacks. This is just to give my thoughts and opinions on the units, kind of give an assessment of what I think they're like, if I think they're good, and what they look like to me. And I think they all are good. I think it's very exciting to have another joint celebration. Obviously last year was Golden Week. I think these guys are definitely good, exceptional units. I think maybe the leader skills are possibly the only downside, but even then the leader skills are, you know, minor downsides, like small issues. In the actual categories are fine. So yeah, that's gonna be it from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, leave a like on it. I'll see you guys in the next one. So until then, bye.